Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today, my guest is Taylor Van De Ven. She is our harpist with a background in music, and she's also a business owner. Emily has led an insurance agency since 2010. This is a business she had with her husband, Ben. She and her spouse were also devoted philanthropists. After Ben tragically passed away, Emily continues his legacy by being a volunteer and doing lots of great service in her community and in the world. Emily is working on her Grief to Gratitude certification, which is accredited by ICF. She also enjoys dogs, tennis, and renovation projects. Thank you, Emily, for being a guest on my show today.
Thank you, Karen. I'm so excited to be here with you.
And let's just go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You will be my very first podcast. So you have a podcast virgin here.
Yes, I was actually just going to say that. So I'm glad you beat me to that. Emily's first podcast, so she's just a tad bit nervous. I told her we're just going to have a conversation and there's not going to be anybody throwing tomatoes at her today. So Emily, I was with you when I saw you speak for the first time at we called it Stages through the Aspire program. We were both there practicing our speeches, and Emily has a very moving story. You have this incredible strength to you, and I'm sure you're thinking you have no choice, right? It's either when you lose someone you care about, it's either you crumble up in a corner and just stay there, or you slowly work on healing and getting better. And I feel like that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's just start about talking about what led you and Ben to open up an insurance company together. Did he always, is that part of his family's history, or how did you guys come up with that?
Yeah, actually, his mom started it back in the 90s. And she came over from Korea and she had to do something. And it's so interesting. Her insurance license book is all translated in Korean. So she really studied hard to get to where she was. But Ben worked for her for a number of years. And unfortunately, it was where she couldn't just pass it down to him. We actually had to purchase it from Nationwide Insurance. So we purchased it just like any other business owner, but she had started this business that we could step into and buy. So that's how we got started. And of course, he was super busy. So I left what I was doing and joined him and then stayed ever since. So obviously we were both very creative. We were musicians. So being in an office was definitely not like what we had dreamed of, but we were able to use our creative outlet to make insurance plans for people and look for solutions. And so we fit it into our personalities. And then just our hearts were always to help and serve people. So I think being there for them in their worst moments, because obviously no one wants to have an insurance claim, right? The goal is never to use insurance. But when you do use it, usually you're in a very bad place. So I think for us, it was always able to step in and be there to support our clients in those horrible moments, gave us that sense of purpose in using our hearts and who we were as people to be able to serve people.
Right. So I know you were in an international, intercultural marriage. And I know the story, and you can choose not to share or to share, but I think one of the things that's maybe unique about your story versus some of the other podcast guests I had is there was some trauma around your family accepting your partner. Do you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, it wasn't easy in the beginning. And obviously, we were very young. I was 17 and Ben was 21 when we met, very young. And I think a lot of the world and our family didn't think we were ready to be committing to a marriage or to each other or to a relationship. Both families wanted us to focus on school and getting degrees. And so I think there was, obviously, as a parent, it's hard to know what's best for to want what's best for your child and for them to know what's best. But Ben and I, we felt we were soulmates. We were best friends almost immediately the day we first had our first conversation, our first date, if you will. And so we were determined to make it work no matter what we had to face on the outside. And I think all the struggle we went through in those beginning years to prove to the world that we did love each other, we were serious, made us that much closer because it was like us against the world. And just building a life together when you're so young, you grow and change, but it's together. Luckily it was together. Not everyone has that luck, or they just grow apart, but we just grew more and more together. So ended up in life, before the accident, we had 21 years together. And then he passed away. We were together 24 years. But for those 21 years, we did everything together, whether it be work or hobbies or music. He played the violin, travel, everything. And everyone always wondered, how are you guys so close? Don't you want to kill each other? We could never do everything together. And literally never. We hardly ever fought. And when we fought, we could never stay mad. Had the motto, never let the sun go down in your anger. And that truly was how he lived. He truly was a part of me in every sense of the word. And everybody called us Bemily. So we didn't even have our own identity. Nobody even called us by our separate names, but it never bothered us. And that's just how we lived. So I think after losing him, it made it that much more traumatic to find out who I am without him.
And so, because of time, we'll summarize this a little bit. But Emily and Ben, through their church, worked in missions in Peru, worked in orphanages, and also you set up programs in Peru. Would you say it that way? Can you, in a brief nutshell, talk about your work in Peru?
Yeah, so basically we went on a 2-week volunteer trip with our church and got stuck in COVID lockdown. It was during COVID. So we made the decision to stay because they're so desperate for volunteers. People were literally starving, dying in the streets. So we stayed and we lived there for about a year with the kids. And we did tons of projects. We taught them English, dance, taekwondo. We built them showers. I remember the day we installed showers, and instead of taking a bucket shower, they had a tap and a water that came out, and they were playing in this shower. They thought it was so amazing. Yeah, it was amazing working with the children and being there that year.
Yeah. And then, of course, Ben ran into tragedy. What do you want to say about what happened to Ben and how traumatic that was for you? This is little or as much as you want to say about that.
Yeah, so we could be here for hours with every single layer of my story. There are so many different layers and chapters, but basically Ben and I contracted COVID while we were at the orphanage. Peru was one of the deadliest countries at one point for COVID. And Ben had that cytokine storm where his immune system attacked him. And so he was really sick on his deathbed, and there was no oxygen. There was no hospitals. I literally tried to bribe myself into getting him into a hospital, and they wouldn't even accept the bags of cash. It was that bad. So we set up like a clinic at the orphanage. They had a little clinic, and because we had assisted them in building this oxygen plant right before all of this, that actually kept him alive, is them having some oxygen. So maybe it was like 5-6 months, I don't know, of him being on oxygen, having to go to physical therapy, being near deaths, constant oxygen saturation near 50s and 60s. He should have been dead, but we worked through that. And so at the end, we didn't realize that he had suffered mentally. So he had suffered brain damage from lack of oxygen, but we were so focused on the physical, we didn't realize that, unfortunately. And to make a long story short, I left to go to England to help my brother with the birth of his second child. And because of COVID, they didn't have any care for their other child. And during that time is when Ben just snapped and had a complete mental breakdown because of this brain damage from COVID. And unfortunately, people in a third world country, developing country, a lot of them are on survival mode and they only care about money. And we were betrayed by people we trusted there. And they took advantage of Ben's mental state to solicit a lot of money from him. And while I was gone, and so he got into a lot of dangerous behavior that he would have never done. He was a complete stranger. He didn't recognize me. And it was terrible. It was watching somebody that you had known and trusted and loved for 21 years make a complete 180. And he didn't even know who he was. And so that was very traumatic. And before even being able to move through that, he was leaving the orphanage and he was attacked and robbed. He was carrying a lot of money, and it was likely an inside job by people that he had trusted that knew he was carrying a lot of money, which is very common in these areas. He was followed. And so he was beaten and broke every bone on the right side of his body, bashed in his skull, so severe brain damage, and then spent months in the hospital in Peru while I flew there and fought for his care day and night, living outside in the street of the hospital. And people don't realize in a developing country like that, the hospital provides you a bed and a doctor, and that's it. Like literally, you have to provide every supply imaginable, which includes needles, band-aids, bandages, water, diapers, whatever you can think of, we had to provide it. And that includes blood. I remember him running, he needed a lot of blood. There was first from the accident, and then also like he had sepsis, they had to drain all his blood. And so literally I had to bring blood to the hospital, which is unfathomable to us in the US, right? I never even knew this existed. I never even knew that. And then I remember his lungs had collapsed from all the broken ribs. And they told me if I didn't get them a tracheotomy kit for his emergency surgery, he would die. And it's nuts because you can't just order a tracheotomy kit from Amazon.
I don't even get I don't even know how you figured all that out.
And I was like, where do I get that? So it's like that constant living like that for months and years and just under that stress is insane. And I look back on everything I went through and say, how did I get here still standing through all of that?
Crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
But you really went through such a long, complex ordeal. Like most of us would just want to give up, yet you couldn't because he had no one else there to look after him. It's quite the story, Emily. I cannot wait to read this book.
I know. Everybody says they need a Hollywood movie. But all that to say, just to sum it up again, is he went through all that. He was in a coma. He came out of a coma, but then was in a vegetative state. He was awake and could follow you in a room, but he could not respond. And so many vegetative patients years later wake up and they can tell you everything that transpired. So we'll never know how much he knew what was going on, although there are many stories I could tell you where I think that he was aware and he knew what was going on. The hospital kicked us out eventually, and I had to build my own hospital or care facility. And because he needed the 24/7 care, he had a feeding tube, tracheotomy, all this, but he wasn't hooked to any machine. So is there nothing? Many people ask me, like, why didn't you just unplug something? I was like, there is nothing to unplug. He was living, breathing on his own, heart beating. He was strong. It was just that he couldn't respond. He couldn't move and he couldn't respond. And so that is probably the worst thing, is watching somebody you love in that condition and just waste away. And there's nothing you can do. But all that I could do was to minimize his suffering and then build this house and bring people off the street to help in his care so that I could go back and forth, but to also show him that his pain was not lost and that there was purpose coming out of the pain, and so that he could sit at the dinner table in his wheelchair and see people that were starving coming to have dinner with us and they had a place to go. So that is one of the big things that got me through all this, is to have that purpose in serving others and to use all that pain to elicit something good.
Yeah. So how did he end up eventually passing because of this vegetative state? It was organs shutting. Like, what happened that,
Yeah, he was nearly 3 years in this vegetative state. So the doctors had told us they were so shocked. Like every time
yeah,
we occasionally brought doctors to the house or took him by ambulance to the hospital, and they were in shocked at the care he was getting. They said that they've never seen anything like it. They couldn't believe like he was flat, like all his muscles. A lot of vegetative patients end up all curling up because they don't move, but we were moving him constantly, massage therapy. So they said he can live his full life expectancy because of the care you're giving him, which would send me into panic attacks. But because he was like 45 when he passed, so full life expectancy, what is that? Another 40 years or another 35 years?
right, right.
Can you? I couldn't even fathom him being in that state for that number of years.
Right.
Every day it was a struggle of just crying out to God, either take him or heal him, because
It's
I
in
can't watch
between
this anymore. No
sucks.
one
Yeah.
wants to live like that, right? So eventually, we believe he passed what they believe is pulmonary embolism, which, come to find out, is very common for bedridden patients. No matter how much we were putting him in his wheelchair, he's still like he can't move on his own. So he was at risk for that, which I never realized until it happened. But yeah, it was sudden, it was peaceful. They say he didn't suffer. It was right away. So that I'm grateful for. Yeah.
Well, because then you could start to work on really healing
Yeah.
and get some
And
peace. Yeah.
people don't, they think that I was okay when he passed away, because obviously it was torture for both of us those 3 years. And it was. And truly, that's exactly what I was crying out to God, just take him or heal him. But I was always hoping on the side of healing, like
Of
healing on
course.
this earth, and just hoping that one day he'll wake up and those brain wave, the whatever in his brain would be reconnected, and he would wake up and we could really work on his earthly healing. So I carried that hope for 3 years. And so when he passed away, that hope just died. And that was a huge hit, more than I realized. I thought I was prepared, but I really wasn't.
Well, how can one really prepare because you're
Yeah.
trying to hold on to hope? When did you get the thoughts or calling to take all the pain that you went through with the grief? When did you get the sense or the urge to do something more with it? Decide that you want to work on your certification?
Really, I decided that even before Ben passed. I had actually started working on researching podcasting and retreats and grief certification actually the month before he passed, because I didn't know. It was like my life was frozen, right? I didn't know how long he's going to be in this state. And I was involved in these brain injury groups. So I saw a lot of what people go through in the United States and all that they face. And there is a huge problem in the United States. They don't have any help, and the system is so broken. So I really wanted to give back to that community as well, which I still would love to figure out something to do, because it's broken and people are so desperate for help and there's nothing for them. And it's really sad seeing their family members, if they can't take care of them at home, which most people can't because it's so unaffordable in the US, right? They end up being sent to these Medicaid facilities, which are terrible. I would love to someday also help in that regard because there's such a need. But then obviously being in Peru, you see so much need there. And so I just was like, man, there's so much need all over the world, wherever it be, in the US or Peru. And it just, when you wipe the tears of others, you forget about your own. And I think serving there in Peru and building this like mini orphanage or whatever you want to call it, bringing people off the streets, taking in kids who are abandoned, it just helped me realize that and so many people there would trade with me in a heartbeat. No matter how much pain and suffering I was going through, they had more. And I think that helped my perspective and helped me just realize that I have all this pain, but there's still so much purpose that I could so much I could be doing. And especially when you lose somebody, like when I lost Ben, it's it, I'm losing my identity, right? And who am I? And especially not being a mom, we never were able to have kids of our own. I'm left all alone, right? And it's wow, what is my place in this world? Who needs me now? And that kind of wakes you up. And if you stay in that feeling, that's very lonely and very hopeless, right? But then you realize that no, you still have life and you still have purpose and you still can change the lives of others, even if you don't have immediate family. And that really helped me to just have that perspective.
Beautiful. Other than looking, it sounds like one of the things that kept you going is perspective. Yes, I'm suffering, but there's more suffering in the world. What else was healing for you? I know you mentioned to me, I think being close to the beach was one of the things, but I want to hear more about what helped you. Like, and I know you're still healing, it's an ongoing process, but what seems to be really helpful for you?
Really living and being so grateful for life and how precious it is. I mean, there were so many dark moments when I did not want to live again. I didn't want to live anymore. I wanted to give up. And but then just flipping that and realizing how many people would love to have my health and my ability to I had the ability to care for Ben, and that was a privilege, and I had the ability to fly back and forth. And one of the things is I was in the Social Security office. This story will ever be burned in my memory, but I was filing for Ben's disability, and I was hearing them like strip away all his rights, his right to drive, his right to vote, his right to carry a firearm. And it was terrible. It was seeing him be stripped of his dignity, of his personhood, and then all of our future hopes and dreams just being stripped away. And I began sobbing, and I couldn't believe this was my life, this was happening. And I reached for a tissue, and on the tissue box it said, this tissue box has been prepared for you by blind Americans. And that just stopped me in my tracks, and God just whispered, you still have your sight. And what would people give to have a sight, and how precious that is. And so being in Peru, like you said, going to the beach, we were 5 minutes from the beach, was amazing because I love the ocean and it is so healing. But going there and watching the sunrise or watching the sunset and watching the waves and being and literally making yourself be so grateful to be able to do that. And like people who are blind who can't, or people who are wrongfully imprisoned, or who are slaves. There's slavery all around the world, right? We don't know what we have in America, but it's wow, how can I complain when I have that? And I have the ability to go for a walk. I have movement, I have legs. So, and it's just like you just happiness is a choice. It's not something that joy is not something that's circumstantial. You choose to be joyous, and you choose that based on your gratitude for what you still have, right? So that really helped me move through all these years. And obviously there are days when I'm not so joyful and I'm not so grateful, but overall is what you want to go for, right? And like of course it's okay not to be okay. So you're going to have those dark days. You're going to have those days when you hate everything and you hate the world and woe is me, it's not fair, right? And that's okay. But it's not okay to stay there. And which is why I want to help people figure out how to get out of that place, because some people are stay in that place and then you can't appreciate life that you still have.
Yeah. Yeah, I one of the things that struck me when as we were Emily and I recently did a little road trip together, traveling from one place to another when we were in Florida together. And that's when I learned about the grief to gratitude certification. I was like, that's so funny. She found a program that is describing how you want to live.
Yes,
You
exactly.
know, you are someone with a lot of gratitude. I just think that's so amazing. So What's next for you when you think about having a coaching program to help other widows or women work through their grief? What does that look like? Does it look like one-on-one services? Is it group coaching? Is it support groups? Is it courses? What's your vision for your next steps?
My vision, wow, it's so much I have in my mind. But
You mentioned retreats too, which you know I
yes,
love.
yes, retreats. I love travel. I love experiencing like other parts of the world. And I think it just opens your eyes just if especially if you're going to those parts of the world where it makes you grateful for what you we have back here. So
Right.
I would love to do retreats incorporating a healing journey and having healing modalities and connection, but also with a little part of service built in, because I think for me that helped so much. And serving others just helped me forget about my own problems for a little bit even. And so, yeah, retreats would be my dream. And I think the connection is just so important because this grief journey is so lonely and so isolating. There were so many times I looked around at all of my family and friends, and they're all leading their normal lives and nothing ever happened. And here I am with everything is shattered, literally every facet of my life, every facet of my being, and just feeling that isolation, like nobody understands, nobody knows what's inside my head or my emotions. But truly there are people who know exactly what you're feeling, what I'm going through. Maybe it's not the same journey, but it's similar emotions, right? And similar thoughts. And getting together with these kind of people is so healing, just to know that you're not alone in that journey, and that you're there's people who won't judge you for whatever choices you made or whatever emotions you feel, because there's a lot in grief, right? There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of bitterness, there's a lot of resentment, and then you start shaming yourself for feeling all of that. But you need validation from other people that it's okay, this is part of the journey, and this is you deserve to feel all of this from the trauma you're facing, the loss you're facing, and it's okay, and you need to let it out. So that's a dream of mine, is and through retreats as well as like support groups. I feel group coaching is more helpful for me as what I need and what I looked for, just because I think it's so amazing getting a group together and having all of these ideas and everyone's journeys and all their thoughts all together and able to contribute is so amazing, that concept for me. So for me, that I would like that more than one-on-one, although I'm open to that as well.
Beautiful. And I forgot to mention something super important. Emily has made a decision to be a speaker at my next summit, January. Is it 15th and 16th, I believe?
Yes.
Let me double check my wall.
Yep.
I got all my
You're
calendar.
correct.
Okay,
Yep,
good.
you're correct.
It's my eighth summit, so sometimes the days can get kind of
Nice.
wobbly in my brain. So Emily is a featured speaker at Finding Purpose After Trauma. Emily, what made you decide to? You're my last speaker that signed up. You
Okay.
took that last spot. What, other than knowing me, I'm sure that was part of it, but what else helped you decide, okay, this is my time to be a speaker on a
Um,
summit?
First of all, it's perfect for what my whole brand is of finding your purpose after trauma, because that literally gives you the will to live. For me, it did.
Mhm.
So that theme was perfect. So I was like, how can I turn this down? This is my whole mindset, my whole perspective. And then I think the theme for 2026 for me is going to be done is better than perfect. So I'm such a perfectionist. I know there's many out there, and I could procrastinate and learn and investigate. I could be 10 years before I start this thing. So, this is my kick in the ass, if you will, from Karen to just get out there and do it, because hearing from people every time when I talk to people and they feel blessed as to what I say, it gives me validation that, okay, I don't need to be a perfect speaker, although I will continue to learn, I will continue to perfect, but don't wait. Get out there and do it, get your message out, because how many people can I start helping even when it's not perfect. So that was my kick in the butt to get it done and out there.
It's so amazing. And just so everybody knows, she had a professional mic in the drawer for a long time. So she's now busted it open and it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
I bought this before my husband died, August 2024. Then he passed away in
Wow.
September, and that shelved all of those aspirations. But yeah, now is the time to get it back out.
Now is the time. Yeah. And even if it's baby steps, it's better than no steps.
Luckily, it works because I was like, man, I'm screwed. I can't bring it back to Amazon if it doesn't work. It's a little past their month return policy.
Emily, thank you so much for not only being a guest on my show today, but for being a summit speaker and more importantly, for being such a dear friend.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for allowing me to be your podcast virgin, to pop my cherry, if you will. But it's been such a pleasure getting to know you and to have you give me this precious opportunity. So I'm looking forward to working together in the future on many more adventures and retreats. I hope to be at your retreat someday.
Yay. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.